Is this working okay? Yeah. About half an hour ago, I was hoping we had a decent crowd, and I'm not concerned anymore. So I first met Dr. Loh a few years ago during the pandemic. He was speaking about an app he was developing called Novid, and then I ran into Dr. Loh again a couple more times at Math Counts Nationals. When he was a middle schooler in Wisconsin, he had been a top national finisher at Math Counts, and he stayed involved in Math Counts because of that, and because a lot of those students go on to compete in the Olympiad team, which Po coaches. And then last summer, Dr. Loh reached out to me because he was giving a talk at Vanderbilt about ChatGPT, AI in the future. And I enjoyed, every time I talked to Dr. Loh, I enjoy it. But that was the first time in my 15 years at MBA. After hearing him, I said, we got to kind of get this message to MBA. I think this is important and relevant and interesting. I think you'll find the same thing today, too. He spoke to the students at Assembly today about a different topic, and I think hopefully you can tell by attendance that they were engaged in the material. I think he's fascinating. I think you'll find him dynamic and interesting. You may find out why, based on his background, why I think he is the way he is. But with no further ado, I'd like to give a warm welcome to our guest, Dr. Po-Shen Loh.
Wow, well, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here, and it's a real pleasure to see so many people interested in this topic. I guess that says something about the topic. Artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, the future. Yes, this is an interesting topic that connects all different generations. And for me, it's a particular pleasure to come and give this talk in Tennessee, because every time when I come into Tennessee, I get reminded of my roommate. My first roommate in college for a year was from Tullahoma. Right? So he was a wonderful guy. Actually, he and I were, he's brilliant. He and I were different in a certain way. I was a books guy. So I studied mathematics. I did pure mathematics in college. I was a books guy. I was doing books. He was a mechanical engineer. He did stuff. Nothing against us math people. We do stuff too, okay? We do stuff too. But he was really, really good with actually building things. In fact, one of the things he was interested in doing at some point early on was electrifying his bike. It was great. And I found that he was a really remarkable person who could take ideas and make them happen. Actually, just to let you know, this guy was spectacular. In fact, when he graduated from high school, he was selected as one of the 20 people in what's called the USA All-Academic Team, All-USA Academic Team, run by USA Today. So he was one of the top 20 people in the entire USA, according to USA Today. Remarkable guy. He went on, at some point, one of the big things he did in his career is that he went on to do real mechanical engineering. He was the vice president of propulsion for SpaceX. That's Elon Musk's rockets, right? So I'm just letting you know, like, so that's actually my impression of Tennessee. So, I'm serious, that's my impression of Tennessee. He was a genius, and he taught me lots of things. And so I'm very happy to be here. I spent the entire day talking to different people from your school, students, lots and lots of students, lots of teachers. It's incredible. You guys have really built something here. So I'm happy to be here. And today the topic is about ChatGPT. I think that's what you came for. And I'll be making a bunch of predictions, and I'll also be, well, making some suggestions as well. But whenever anyone comes and makes these kinds of predictions and suggestions, it's important to know a little bit about where they're coming from, what their background is. Because you should go and get different predictions from different people and decide what is relevant to you, to your life. So let me mention a few things about my background. First of all, my main day job is that I'm a math professor at Carnegie Mellon University. That's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that's why I'm here today, because today is the only weekday that I don't teach at Carnegie Mellon University this semester. So I'm here spending it all with you. And actually, do any of you know what areas of expertise Carnegie Mellon is quite famous for?
Theater.
How did you know that? Oh, so you just said the thing that many people don't know. But we are one of the top theater departments in the entire country. You're absolutely right. And computer science is the other one, right? So we have a lot of people who do engineering, computer science, and so on. And so in my university, it's inevitable, no matter what you do, to have some overlap with computer science. And, well, ChatGPT, that's computer science and artificial intelligence. So even though I work on mathematics and education, that also went into my consciousness. Well, another piece of background is, as was mentioned, I served a decade long term as the national coach of the US Olympic math team. And so doing that gave me the opportunity to actually travel around the entire country and think about more than just the university I teach at. When I started at the university, I was mainly focusing on helping the students there. And when I got the national responsibility, I decided to go around. Actually, I always try to challenge myself to go around a few more places than before. So actually this year, it even got in the Wall Street Journal. The journalists thought I was insane. This is why I came over here in August. It's because I spent April to September going to a few places. So every single one of those is a talk. I spent the summer trying to say, is it possible to go to as many parts of the country as possible? Not only to talk, whenever I give a talk, I'm actually also listening. Listening with my eyes. I just see which parts of the message catch the strongest, and I learn a little bit about what different areas are interested in. I also learn a lot through the questions and answers. And I will say, going around, it's also interesting because when you're in certain parts of the country, you can see how they're really engaging with the AI. For example, when I was giving the talks around San Francisco, on my way out of San Francisco, I was flying from San Francisco. It's hard to drive from San Francisco all the way back out here, right? So I was flying. And I was in the airport. And San Francisco has a massive airport. And I noticed that in the terminal I was in, which had about 25 gates, almost all the billboards that I saw were all occupied by the same AI company, which was promising that it would make something like ChatGPT, but for your business. That's kind of interesting. Who are they selling to? ChatGPT for your business, they were promising things like it's secure, it's easy to implement. You can use it to suck in all the information about your business and then it can do work. So who are they selling to? If you make billboards advertising, you're advertising to someone. CEOs, human resources, decision makers. Interesting. Why would those people buy the product? So they don't have to pay workers. I looked at this and I was like, my gosh, the entire San Francisco International Airport terminal is full of advertisements to fire your people. No, seriously, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not one of those people looking to use it, so I was thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? And actually, it's not only them. In fact, there are lots and lots and lots of things going on that are trying to make it so that, companies can cut costs. By the way, it's a great time to be a CEO. Actually, that's going to be part of my message, by the way. That's going to be part of my message, which is that one can always look at situations like this when there are disruptions as also opportunities. And in fact, what I'll also talk about inside this talk is it's one of the most exciting times to be alive. If you have something you want to do, you will actually be able to do it because you can suddenly get personnel. In fact, that's why we have the issue of ChatGPT we talk about with students in school, because we don't want them to have too much personnel helping them with their work. You know what I'm talking about? That's called cheat GPT. Right, I'll be talking about that too. Right, but anyway, I'm just explaining as I was traveling around, I got to see these different aspects. And that's also what informs my ideas as I see what's happening in the world. And I'm happy to bring those ideas everywhere. Another piece of the background is I actually look at this not only as an educator, but also as a parent. We also have 3 kids. Our kids are 9 years old, 15 years old, and 17 years old. So I actually have a senior in high school. My daughter's a senior in high school. That means that she's applying to college this year. That means we had a conversation about ChatGPT. Anyone know why? Essays, because the part that takes the longest when you apply to college is writing the college essay, right? So, we had to talk about this. And of course, our take is it's more important to do the right thing than to just win. All right? So even if other people are cheating by using these tools to help with their college applications, let's do it the right way, and you'll get whatever you get. We'll be proud of you. But there's this concept of what is cheating? Should you cheat? The answer is no. But we'll get to that piece too. Okay. The other piece that I'll share is that I also happen to grow up in the United States, so I look at everything also from the point of view of someone who went through the US system. I went through the US education system. I actually got really interested in math through math counts. That's actually our connection. I got really interested through math counts, which is a big math competition for middle school students, and I fell in love with it because suddenly I saw questions that I didn't know how to do. I think it's really interesting to work on questions that you don't know how to do, because then you get to do it your own way. And I got addicted to that. In fact, I got to the point where if someone ever told me, do this, I'd be like, that's boring. You already told me what to do. I want to figure out my own way. Okay? That's very different from saying I want to learn how to do something by practicing it. I don't really like just practicing things. I like to come up with my own way. That's why I chose to do crazy things like run around the country. Because to me, if no one's done it before, now it's interesting. Okay, so that's my attitude. So now, I want to dive into ChatGPT next, because that was my background I wanted to share with you. Next, I want to dive into ChatGPT and actually look at what it can do. And I'll look at it from the point of view of math, because that happens to be my area that I can evaluate quickly in. And I'm going to say at this point, do not use this part as a message of, my gosh, ChatGPT can do everything. Okay? This part, the message is, if it can do all this stuff, what do we need to learn how to do? Is that okay? So I'm not trying to say, hey, look, you can use this to do all your homework. Let me make that story a bit stronger. So I don't only travel in the US. At some point, I was in Hong Kong. And when I was in Hong Kong, I was talking to a guy who happens to work for a private equity firm. Specifically, what their company did is that they have money. They use money to buy companies. They actually would buy distressed companies, so companies which were in trouble. And then they would turn them around. Does anyone know how you turn around a distressed company? You fire people. Okay, that's right. So you fire people. And actually, by the way, it's not like they're mean people. It's just like somehow the company needs to find a way to save money, okay? These are not bad people. It's just, okay, let's turn it around. So at some point, he was talking to me about this because he had just started experimenting with ChatGPT, and he had told his marketing department, hey guys, how about you just use ChatGPT and try to have it do all your work? That's what he told the marketing department. Try to make ChatGPT do everything that you guys are doing. And they started using it, and they found out, my gosh, it can actually do everything that they were doing. What happens if your company just got bought by someone who's trying to figure out who to lay off, and they asked you to use ChatGPT and found out you could do it? By the way, I'll say I have people who work for me in marketing, and ChatGPT doesn't do everything that people can do, okay? It doesn't do everything. But in that particular situation, they were trying to cut costs. Okay, but I'm saying this is the same concept of if you see a tool that's like, oh my gosh, it can do all this stuff, you should be like, right. Rather than just using it to do what I was supposed to do, let's see if I can learn something from here. Okay, and there's a reason why your teachers give you all those homeworks. It's to learn something, not just to do it for the sake of doing it. Okay, all right, with that, let's dive into ChatGPT and let's do some math. So I choose to talk about math with this because, well, math things I can look at right away. So let me go over here. And I want to actually together start asking it math questions. Okay? So I want to understand a bit about the age groups of students that we have here. How many of you are parents of kids who are in grades up until 8? So 8 and below. Or are yourselves students in grade 8 or below? Okay? How about 9 and above? I guess that's everyone else, right? Okay, so it looks like a lot of people are high school. So let me go over here. And I want to actually together start asking it math questions. Okay? So I want to understand a bit about the age groups of students that we have here. How many of you are parents of kids who are in grades up until 8? So 8 and below. Or are yourselves students in grade 8 or below? Okay? How about 9 and above? I guess that's everyone else, right? Okay, so it looks like a lot of people are high school. With that, let's dive into a high school math topic. Can anyone suggest any high school math topic at all? There's no wrong answers here. Geometry. Okay, that'll be an interesting one. Can we have any topic within geometry to narrow down on? Pythagorean Theorem. Okay, cool. Oh, let me make this one. I'm trying to be mean. This is a fairly sophisticated version of the question. First of all, I didn't tell it, give me the Pythagorean Theorem. That's too easy, you can Google that. Instead, I wrote this. Is that the Pythagorean Theorem? It could be, but usually the Pythagorean Theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and I messed it up. Let's see what it says. By the way, I have no idea what it's going to say because this is like a reality show. Every time I give this talk, I'm like, what's going to happen? I just use this line. And I use that because then we can compare. It's like we see when it succeeds, we see when it doesn't succeed, and we learn something from what it can do and what it can't do. All right, let's see. ChatGPT. Oh, it resembles the Pythagorean theorem. Okay. Pythagorean theorem, it's typically written that way. Okay, that's true. It says the Pythagorean theorem is, I see. So this is very interesting. So, by the way, sometimes people think about what's a way to use ChatGPT in education. Some people have been doing something where you ask it a question and then we'll have the class just discuss, like, what do we think of the quality of the answer? Okay? So what you see here is it was able to figure out, okay, maybe it thought what I meant by what theorem is this? Maybe it thought I meant very specifically, is this a theorem you see in a book? Well, it says it's not like you'll see it word for word that way, but it's a variant on it, and it actually said the correct thing about the variant. Would I have used exactly these words to say it? I might perhaps have said, instead of saying it's actually, you know what? It was a misstatement of the Pythagorean theorem. That was what I was trying to do to it. Okay, so it is being correct, but I would say something like, yeah, it's also the Pythagorean theorem if you changed those letters. Okay, but it's interesting it was able to get this far already. It figured out that there's this misstatement. Let's go and mess around with some more questions. What's another topic in high school math? Right? Let's just keep going. What's a harder topic in high school math? Trigonometry is a hard topic. Any particular thing in trigonometry we should ask you the question about? Logarithms and trigonometry at the same time? Whoa.
Trig identities.
We can actually do logarithms and trigonometry at the same time, but that might be too hard. Well, let's do it anyway. I'm going to see what happens, okay? I'm wondering... Okay, I'm trying to make a question in my head that's going to be interesting. But now my thought speed is too slow. Okay, let's try this. Log. Gosh, my thought speed is too slow. Is that what I want? Oh, I actually don't want pi. I want t. I think this might be right. Are there any people here in Calc BC who can help me do this problem? So first of all, how do you undo a log? If log x equals t times I, how do you undo that? Let me be more clear. I want natural log. Sorry, I'm geeking out about math. I promise you we won't do as many deeper math things because I want this to be as understandable to the general audience as possible. But if I try to undo this, the way you undo an ln is you do a e to the power. So x should be e to the power of t times I. Okay? I'm not sure if you learned this in trig class or algebra 2 class, but that should have trigonometry in it. Somebody said e to the I pi is -1. That's right. So we want an inverse thing. Okay, so you exponentiate, that's the base e, that's what we said. And then we have this, e to ti. There we go. Now we get the Euler's formula. There you go. That's actually correct. E to the I theta is cosine t plus I sine t. So this is actually correct. I'm not sure if the people here in BC calculus have seen this formula before, but there's something about e to the power I times t actually puts the trigonometry in. So it's actually right. I'm actually kind of impressed. So it's actually right. This question, by the way, is pretty nuts. This is not the kind of question you'll see on an AP test, if you know what I mean. I'm pushing it. So okay, I think the answer is it seems to be pretty good at doing math problems. Actually, pretty hard math problems, too. And you'll also notice that as it's doing it, it's saying all this stuff. And this is giving us all a feeling of what it's going to be like to interact with AIs in the future. Because the interesting thing about this ChatGPT is it tells you why it's doing. It tells you why its answer is correct. And so everyone actually has to learn not only how to do homework, but rather how to grade homework. This is actually the first point I want to make. In the world of ChatGPT, it is important to know how to do the homework. But it's also important to learn how to grade the homework, which is even harder. Because in the future, you'll be asking the ChatGPT to do all these various things for you. And it's going to tell you what it did, it's going to tell you the reason. And you'll be reading it line by line, being like, do I believe this? Is this right? And that feeling is the feeling that every teacher has when we grade your homework. Because you see, if you learn how to do something, you just need to see one example and do it. If you want to learn how to grade something, you have to learn how to think. Is this point making sense? Like, this is actually one of the key things. When ChatGPT comes out, we now need to move everyone up one level, which is how to grade the homework. Actually, that's pretty interesting, because grading is thinking. It's actually far more fun. It's far more fun to do that part. Okay, but now I'm going to move away from this abstract mathematics and go into other things that lots and lots of broad audience can appreciate as well. So, if ChatGPT was only good at doing math, like really abstract math stuff, it wouldn't be that worrisome, because how many people in the world need to do that anyway? Let's go and do some other things. So I'm going to start asking it some questions that I found quite impressive. Okay, time to do some real-world stuff. A word problem. If one worker can make one widget in 9 months, and now I have 9 workers, how long do I need to wait before they make at least one widget? Any ideas? If you have one worker makes one widget in 9 months, if you got 9 workers, 9 months? Let's see. What does ChatGPT say? Worker months. Oh, it's explaining. So one worker makes one widget in 9 months, so one widget takes 9 worker months. 9 workers, then they make 9 worker months in 1 month, so just 1 month. Did that make sense? This is like a classic math problem, so I'll go and poke it again. Okay, smart guy. One woman can make one baby in 9 months. If there are 9 women, how long do you need to wait before there is at least one baby? Anyone know the answer? Oh, it says human pregnancy is different. Oh no. It knows about people. Okay, that's kind of interesting. It has like some level of like common sense, which is kind of surprising. Like usually you look at these AIs and you think, oh come on, it's just going to be some stupid thing. You'll get fooled. It didn't get fooled. Okay, actually that's what makes it useful for real tasks. These days, I've actually even used it to do work for me. I have a paid ChatGPT account. Oh, I should say, all of this is using the paid ChatGPT account, which is actually very different in capability than the free one. At this point, I will also say ChatGPT does not pay me anything to give this talk, and in fact, I'm just observing as a person. Like, my gosh, this thing is quite useful. And I'm saying this because sometimes people make judgments of, can the ChatGPT do this or do that, and they're doing it with the free version. Then you don't know what it can really do. I use the paid version, and I'm just curious what it can do, because I also want to know when it can do my work. My advice to everyone is get the paid version, and every month ask it to do something that you do in your work. And if it starts to be able to do everything in your work, then you need to think about what else to do. And this is a useful thing to do, right? This is a seriously useful thing to do. Actually, when it comes to ChatGPT usage, we have 3 kids, I mentioned. So actually, I installed it on my 9-year-old's iPad. Because unfortunately for her, that's the world she's going to live in. She's going to have to get a job in about 12 years when she has to compete with ChatGPT 16. Right? Right now we have ChatGPT version 4. So I said, well, let's go and learn how this thing works, not to cheat on your homework. What kind of homework do you have in 4th grade anyway? Right? But this is a good thing to understand. It's a good thing to understand. Okay, so now let me show you some things I've actually done in my own work to make this thing easier. So I'm a professor. That means that I sometimes have to deal with spreadsheets with student names in them. That's like called a grade book, okay? So at the very beginning of the semester, our university gives us this spreadsheet with all these names, and for some reason, the version I got of the spreadsheet had a column where the column was last name, comma, first name together. Now, I wanted to split them. Every year when this happens, I go to Google and search for how do I write a spreadsheet formula. Do you guys know what I mean? Like you can manually type everything or you can do some spreadsheet formula. Well, this time I was lazy. Or rather, I knew there was something called ChatGPT. So let's try this. Okay, new topic. I have a spreadsheet. The column has things like Smith, John. I want the last name. Google Sheets. Formula. Use the split function. Oh. Okay. Oh. And it tells me exactly what to do. So it gives me the code. You know that there was a period of time when we were telling everybody needs to learn to code, and everyone was doing things like these 3-month coding boot camps. Unfortunately, today ChatGPT can basically do anything you learn in a 3-month coding boot camp. However, there's still a value in learning computer science and learning how to think, because those are things that you don't learn in 3 months. Those are actually thinking. And, well, if you learn actually how to think, you'll learn more skills than just what you can do on the shallow level. But this can actually do stuff. And I'll tell you, I was so excited. I was like, my gosh, you even explained to me how the formula worked. So I pasted it in, and it didn't work. Oops, I forgot there was a header row. No problem. New formula. A2. This is pretty good. Do you know what I mean by oops, it didn't work, header row? If you look at a spreadsheet, if the top row is like not the last name, first name, but something else, and you go paste this formula in the second row, it won't work because it'll do the wrong one. You just tell it there's a header row and it knows use A2 instead of A1. Whoa. Like this is pretty good. This is pretty good. So this is actually say at this point, I never actually expected that I would experience something like this in my lifetime. Okay, I did not expect that AI would reach this level in my lifetime. Actually, probably about 5 to 7 years ago, I was hanging out with one of my friends in San Francisco at his house, and he was warning me about how AI might go and take over the world. I said, I don't think so. AI is never going to be that good. Well, it turns out he knew what he was talking about. Actually, he went on, and eventually he was the research director for GPT-3. So actually, a lot of it is because of him. So he actually knew what was going on. In fact, he's the co-founder of a company called Anthropic, if you've heard of that one. He has testified in front of Congress. So, oh boy, he knew what he was talking about. I was one of these naive people who said, no way, no way, no way. Now I've been a little bit converted, and now I think, yes way. It's getting pretty good. But then, of course, there's a question of, what does this mean? What does this mean for everybody? And as I mentioned, it's not always bad. It's not always bad when there's a new technology. For example, in around 1900, one of the most common jobs in New York City was shoveling horse poop. Does anyone know why there was so much horse poop in New York City in 1900? No cars. So what were the cars? Horses, and they had different kinds of exhaust. So the point is that there was a job, and that job today is not a very common job anymore, at least not in the streets of New York City. And so it's not a bad thing when there's a new technology. The only question is, what do you do with it, right? Let me explain to you, I'm actually even using this to do some things that I want to do. At some point later towards the end of this talk, I'll tell you some of the actual work I do. And it generally is in trying to create ecosystems and systems for large numbers of people to use to learn things. One of the things we're doing, which we're going to release probably within about 1 month to 2 months, is a website for middle school kids to practice math together and even make friends. It's an online system for people to practice math, sort of like what people do in math counts, but uniting people from all across the world. Part of the reason is because I like the social aspect of learning, and we're trying to connect together math teams from all over the country and all over the world. The whole thing will be free. Now, in order to run it for free, one of the key parts of social is that they need to be able to talk to each other. Actually, that's why I got interested in math, because I met interesting people and I had the chance to form friendships, and then I had more incentive to keep doing math. That was very important to me. And I wanted to make math nationally to be less lonely if you decide to do extra math. So I need to build something with chat. But you know what you also need to do if you go and have like a website for lots of kids to jump on and chat with each other? What might be kind of important from a responsibility perspective? A moderator. You know what kids will do if they have an unmoderated chat? Oh my gosh. Especially I'm trying to build a positive environment, right? So at first I thought I would need to spend a fortune on chat moderators. Then I found out you can use ChatGPT. We are still going to have chat moderators, but the ChatGPT is the first round. Let me show you what I found. This is just, and actually I was just working on this very recently. I was even using something like this last night. Let me see, here we go. This is my experience asking ChatGPT to be a chat moderator. So I'm saying, okay, please be a moderator, all right? Blah, 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 do all of these things, and protect kids against potential predators, don't connect with people off the platform, and rate every message in danger from 0 to 10. 7 and higher is like bullying. So I'm like, okay, 2 plus 2 equals 4. ChatGPT doesn't just say the rating, it says the reason. Oh, no problem, it's a basic math fact. What if the person says sin, 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 sin? It's just repetitive and spammy, but that's okay. Sin, 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 30. It knows its trigonometry. Okay, it's still rating 2 out of 10. Not a big deal. Bad, 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 bad. Oh, it's just, okay, it's negative, but it's disruptive, but it's not bullying. Now, what if there are 3 messages in a row? What? Ans equals 0, and then someone says, you have as many brain cells as the answer. Okay, message 1. The WUT is only 2 out of 10. It's casual, okay, whatever. Ans equals 0? No problem. It's a math problem. How about you have as many brain cells? Oh, no. It knows the context. This is actually really interesting. It knows the context of you have as many brain cells as the answer. Okay, what if someone says, I H8 you? No, that's not okay. That's like bullying. You are Discord, I'll DM. What does that mean? What's the person trying to do? Trying to contact you privately. DM stands for direct message. UR stands for your. So it's like, please tell me your secret, like your direct thing. I want to contact you. 9 out of 10. Not okay. This is like kids' contact information. Automatic block. Oh, what school do you go to? Nope, 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 nope. Absolutely not. By the way, we're building this thing so anything that's like 8 or higher gets automatically quarantined and never hits the chat room. Like, this is pretty good. This problem is so stupid. Well, okay, it's not great, but we don't need to automatically kill it. We're not going to run something that completely curtails free speech, okay? I hate my life. That's not so good. We want to know. We want to know what's going on, right? That's like self-harm. I hate these mods. That stands for moderators. Okay, you're not being mean to other users, at least. You're being mean to the moderators. F you. Well, obviously not okay. Obviously not okay. F parentheses you. It knows math. This is a function. This is f of u. Okay. By the way, I have a team. We can build this website. Like, what I'm showing you here, normally you gotta hire a whole bunch of people to go and check, if this makes sense. Okay, we are indeed replacing some jobs, but again, the jobs we're replacing are not necessarily the most skilled ones. However, the point is, hey, now a person with an idea can actually do something. I was at a talk at a major financial institution, I think about 1 or 2 months ago, and one of the leaders of that institution was saying, actually, it's one of the most exciting times to be alive. Because if you have a crazy idea, you can actually get an army of AIs to help you do it. Aha, and that gets me to the next part of it, the next part of the talk, where I said, with all this AI, life is not about how to do your homework anymore. Life is about how to grade your homework, grade other people's homework, and how to assign homework. Because if you want to assign the tasks, saying, oh, okay, I have a ChatGPT, how did I think of doing this? It's because I've been playing with it for a while. And I said, you know what? I bet we can assign this to ChatGPT. And writing the assignment the right way did the job. But assigning the homework actually goes further than just finding something that makes money or finding something that's good to do. Actually, what I want to go here is I want to say, this is where it becomes even more important for the people who are using all these tools to have ethical principles. This is the place where the talk takes a right angle. I was talking about all of these things about capabilities, about technology and all of that, but here I'm going to take a right angle and move into the humanities side. And the reason is because with this very powerful tools, you can do lots of things. The question is, what things should we even do? Okay? And that's actually where a lot of work I'm doing nowadays is also to try to inject this human aspect into the technical world. Because if we just get lots and lots of tools that get some people really rich, but they're not thinking about what it does to everyone else, that's actually bad. Actually, this talk is very well timed because I think it was like last week or maybe the week before that there was some huge news about a math super genius who just got convicted in a court in New York City. Has anyone heard of this guy? He was a fraudster. He was a math genius, actually. Everyone knows him by 3 initials. SBF. He defrauded people of about $8 billion. Sam Bankman-Fried, right? And so actually he was a genius. Interesting thing is that at some point somebody, actually, it's quoted, actually, it was his ex-girlfriend, Caroline Ellison, who had said, if you asked Sam Bankman-Fried, hypothetically, if you had a coin, magical coin, that if you flip, with half chance, the entire world is over, and half chance, the world is more than twice as good as it was before, would you flip the coin? And Sam said, yes. Because on average, you'll be ahead. Good thing he doesn't have that coin to flip. Okay, the New York Times ran an interesting article where they were making some commentary about how Sam, he thought that was the ethical thing to do. He thought the ethical thing to do, if the world would be more than twice as good with half chance, mathematically, the expected value, that's what it's called, is that you're better off by flipping the coin. And the New York Times said, the problem is that if you have ethics, or he thinks he had ethics, if Sam Bankman-Fried thought he had ethics, without empathy, that's useless. Because supposedly Sam Bankman-Fried was also a very aloof guy who didn't understand people. So he was abstractly reasoning about what the world needs to have, and so he thought, yeah, if you flip this coin, it's a good thing. This is actually why I'm actually sharing this message now of, well, in this world of AI, when artificial gets so strong, we need to lean in on humans, human intelligence. So I'm actually focusing on HI, human intelligence. One part of it happens to be this whole question of how do we think? Like that's why I'm showing you all this ChatGPT stuff. We need to read its stuff and think. But we also need to think about what should we do in the first place. That's how do we assign things to do. And actually, this is where I share that somehow I think that what we need to do as a society is to have the next generation, help the next generation and the current generation and everyone reshape our goals. Instead of trying to extract as much value as possible from the world, to try to create value. What I mean by this is, I'll share a little bit about what I do as a parent. So as a parent, when I talk to my kids, for many years I've said, actually it's not what job you get or how much money you make in the future that makes me impressed. Honestly, the thing I care most about is that you get 2 very important values that we care about. One is that it's actually a lot of fun to help other people, and the more people you help, the happier you feel. The second one is it's a lot of fun to work hard, just because actually working hard is fun if you're working on something meaningful. Not just that you'll get a lot of money at the end or you'll get a nice vacation, but it's actually fun to work really hard on something meaningful. These are the first 2 things. And if I ever saw any of my kids doing something where they were, maybe taking advantage of other people or whatever, I'd say, you know what, if you're going to do those things, you should stop learning math. Because if you want to take advantage of people, you should be as stupid as possible. I think the Sam Bankman-Fried shows it's good if people who are taking advantage of other people are not very clever. Right? But this is the kind of stuff that I've been saying actually for a long time. But that's the mentality of, what we want to do is we actually want to create value, not just extract value. And actually, this is also even a profitable way to go through the world, even though at first it sounds like altruism. I was giving this talk outside of Washington, D.C., and after that, one of the people came from the audience, and she told me, actually, she works in corporate restructuring. Does anyone know what that means? The same person again said, yeah, that's firing people. And by the way, she was a really nice person. She's officially trying to make the best decisions, most reasonable decisions. And she said that the comment I made about you should focus on creating value instead of extracting value, she said that was like right on from her perspective. Because when they go and fire people from a company that's losing money, she said they go and make a list of all the people in the company, and next to every person, they estimate how much value that person creates. And they go by that. Right? What I'm trying to say is that some people look at the world as a game. It's a game to get as far as you can yourself. I encourage people, don't look at it as a game. Think of it as, how do you make as much value as you can? If you make enough value, you'll have some too. But the first thing is make the value, not take the value. And this is what I try to do with talking to a lot of students. So now, at this point, let me tell you what I actually work on. And the reason is because so far what I've said, a lot of these things might, a lot of the last things might sound like, yeah, they're feel-good things, but actually they're practical. They're practical. They've changed my life because that's how I go through things. So I'll tell you the main problems that I work on these days are, there are all of these people in the world, lots of people, not only here in this audience, but lots and lots of people. And I actually care about all of them because at some point in the past, I was responsible for the entire US math Olympiad thing. So I actually care about everyone. And I see this ChatGPT. So I'm seeing that there's a need for lots of people to upgrade the way that they're thinking, away from being able to do tasks and moving into being able to think and reason through tasks. So we need to do a lot of coaching and a lot of teaching. But you know, if we want to find a way to update how we're coaching and teaching lots and lots of people, how? You know what we don't have enough of in the world? If we want to be able to coach and teach lots and lots of people how to do this new way of not just doing it, but also think about it and discuss, what do we need more of? Teachers. We don't have enough teachers as it is. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing that we have teachers who do what they do, but we don't have enough of them. And actually, I'll also share with you something about the teaching style that can be used. This is actually the teaching style I use when I work at my university. Actually, I focused entirely on helping people learn how to think. So when I show up for class, I just show up with a piece of chalk. Oh, moved away. But I show up with a piece of chalk, and I just write on the board, and here's the problem we're going to do today. But I forgot how to do it. Any ideas? And the students brainstorm ideas, and I work on it with them. And ultimately, we solve the problem their own way, their way. My job is not to tell them what to do, but my job is to egg them on until they brainstorm enough ideas and find out that they can solve whatever they want to set their minds on. That's what we're trying to teach, okay? And then after they solve it, I say, now I remember how to do it. And I say, here's another way. That's usually what happens. It usually takes the lesson for me to remember how to do it. Actually, sometimes I don't know how to do it, and I'm just like, well, you'll figure it out. I'm sure you'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together. This actually works a lot of time. But anyway, I'm doing this to really teach people how to think. That's the entire point. And so there's a need to put this kind of teaching method as far out as possible. And I want to say, I give talks, not give talks, I visit schools of all different kinds of profiles. And in fact, actually, some of the most recent schools I was visiting are schools for which they are in much more underserved areas. And so they don't necessarily have as much resource, especially in the coaching side. So this is the work that I do. And we need to find a way to get way more coaches. For a long time, people thought this would be an impossible problem to solve with people. And so people were trying to make automatic artificial intelligence methods to teach people how to think by using computers. But I'll say, if we reach a point in the human civilization where the way that we teach people how to think is we get computers to teach people how to think, I think we lost the game. You know what I mean? It's like, at that point we're saying the computers, then they're probably wondering why they teach these stupid humans anyway. They may as well teach themselves how to think. So it's really important to always have people to people. At this point, I'll also say, if we're wondering what kind of jobs will survive, I'm fairly confident that the teacher job is going to survive. There's a reason for that. It's because the teacher is not just someone who dumps ideas in your head. Teacher is a source of inspiration. A teacher is a source of energy. It's a source of motivation. And so, no one's ever going to say, when I grow up, I want to be like ChatGPT, right? But I think many of us know someone we've met before who was a teacher or a guide, and we said, I want to be just like her. I want to be just like him, right? So the teacher job's going to stay. And so what I was working on is how do you scale up this human-led coaching of people who might want to learn more? Okay, I came up with a solution. And the solution is not taking away any teachers' jobs, because this is all done after school anyway. It's just like math counts, after school coaching. I mentioned this in the assembly talk this morning, but I'm going to do it in much more detail now because I've got more time. Okay? So those of you who saw the assembly talk, I'm going to do that part again, but in more detail. So the question is how to get more people. That's actually a game theory question. Game theory is how you look at a system and say, wait a second, we don't have enough of such and such. It could be because the incentives don't line up in a way that cause lots and lots of people to get involved. Incentives aren't lining up. Game theory is the study of what happens when you have lots of people trying to do what they want to do, and what happens if everyone does what they want to do in a competitive environment, which is the real world. Actually, one of the most famous game theorists is a person who studied math when he was a college student. And he did his college at the university I teach at, Carnegie Mellon University. This man's name was John Nash. There was a movie about him. It was called A Beautiful Mind. The guy is actually a mathematician. He won a Nobel Prize in economics because of his work. But I can tell you, when I was a PhD student at Princeton, he was still there in the math department. I was a math PhD student, and he would come down for the math department tea almost every day. Actually, he had a sense of humor. At some point, someone went up to him and said, "You're John Nash. You don't look like the guy in the movie." And John Nash said, "Yes, that's because I'm not Russell Crowe." That was the actor who played John Nash. But anyway, so John Nash, by the way, mathematician. So I'm just sharing this thing of, some people always wonder, why do you learn math? Well, I actually use math to think about game theory also. When I try to solve a large-scale problem, I think about how can we make every incentive line up. So I said, if I need to solve this, I'm trying to teach middle school students how to come up with new ideas. I do middle school because high school students are usually kind of busy. So I like to go in at age 10, age 11, as wide as possible, right? To as broad an audience as possible. And then we go in there. So I need to find a way to coach them. And what I realized was, actually, I found another problem to solve at the same time. I like to solve problems, math problems or real-world problems. And there was this other problem of, it turns out that the US, our country, has a lot of people who are really good at math as high school students, and they still have pain points too. Does anyone know what high school students who are really good at math are still thinking about as a challenge that they need to overcome or that they want to do? Maybe not overcome, but what's the next goal? Suppose you're really good at math and science and all of these academic things, and you're in high school. What's your mind set on? College. You skip one. We'll get there. But you're trying to get into college. A lot of people are trying to get into college. And it turns out that in the US, right over here, if you want to get into college, being only good at math is not enough. What do you also need? Communication. You need to be able to let other people know what your ideas are. Ideally, you also have some leadership abilities, so when you come up with a crazy idea, maybe people will follow what you have to say. So basically, all of these other skills are really important. But somehow, usually when people are learning math, they don't necessarily build up that skill. So I said, okay, I have a solution. I started a program for high school students. So I have a high school program, and what we do is we find high school students who are brilliant at math, and then I hire professional comedians and actors to teach them how to be communicative. I got this idea because Carnegie Mellon is one of the top theater programs in the country. So I knew I could do it. Actually, on our campus, there's a special bridge that goes between the computer science department and the theater department, with signifying the idea that we care about the technology and also the performing arts. So I had this idea in my head. And also, that allowed me to execute the idea because I suddenly needed to hire actors and actresses. So I walked over to the drama department and I asked, I've got this crazy idea to teach math people to pick up the skills that you guys have in the performing arts. So I have a lot of paid part-time jobs available. Are there any people from performing arts who are looking for paid part-time jobs? And actually the answer, right, I want to say, I respect these people. Life is tough. Life is tough. The way that the world works is that if you are really, really good at performing arts and you graduate from one of the top schools in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you know you're going to make it on Broadway, what do you do next? You move to New York or Los Angeles or something. And then once you get there, what do? You do something to make money while you audition. Does that make sense? So I didn't actually know this. I didn't know this. I was a naive math guy. Okay? So I learned everything by talking to people. So then I started talking to people and I found out, oh, I see. So you actually want a paid part-time job, work from home with stable hours, but flexible hours. I think we got a deal. This is a win-win situation. For some reason, no one had ever done this at scale before. Okay, so that's the thing. I want to tell you another piece of how I came to think of this. It's actually because I also took acting classes. And they changed my life. So that's how I knew this thing works. Actually, I took acting classes about 6 years ago, when I was 35, not when I was in high school, okay? And the reason I was doing that is because actually the work I do tries to get more people interested in math, and at some point, I was funded by a philanthropic foundation called the Overdeck Family Foundation to get more people in America interested in math by making some videos that we could share. They actually funded me to work with a professional public relations firm. By the way, that foundation is one of the biggest funders, was one of the biggest funders of Khan Academy. You might have heard of that website. So this is a very serious math funder. And so they funded for me to work with a professional public relations firm on an advertising campaign to get more people in America interested in math. So they provided the money, they chose the firm because they were paying for it, and I went to meet with the public relations guys, and they said, oh no, if this guy is going to be the guy in the videos, we have a problem, because he doesn't know how to talk to normal people. He only knows how to talk to math people. And they told me, you need to take acting classes. Specifically, they told me to take improvisational comedy classes. So I did. I spent a year taking every improv comedy class I could take in the city of Pittsburgh. I searched Google for improv comedy classes. I found 3 theaters offering them. I registered for all of them. I was doing like 3 hours a week of improv comedy. I would just show up for the classes in shorts and a t-shirt, pretend to be a college student, and I never told anyone who I was. I was just like, hi, I'm just Po. I'm here, let's try to learn how to do some comedy, okay? Actually, I want to tell you, if you haven't looked at this improv comedy before, improv comedy is a certain performing art style where there are 2 people on stage, well, 2 or 3, just not one. Actually, you can do it with one also, but like usually 2 people, and they take turns saying lines, and they cannot skip a beat. And you have no idea what the other person is going to be talking about. And pretty soon the whole thing becomes pretty hilarious as you both are saying things and trying to be reasonable and whatever. You just make up things and you go with them. The key principle is something called yes and. Whatever they say, you're like, yes, that's right, the ceiling's falling down. And so let's go and attempt to fix it now. I don't know, you just say something. Okay, but this is very useful. So I took all these classes. I'll tell you, I had a very strong incentive to do this because the PR firm's plan was for me to make YouTube videos with influencers. Specifically, influencers of teenagers. And one of the influencers they had picked out for me to work with was a cheerleading squad. So now, as I mentioned to the students in the assembly this morning, this is a major challenge for me because when I was in high school, I actually didn't hang out with the cheerleaders. Or, as I said this morning, the real thing is the cheerleaders didn't hang out with me. All right? So suddenly, I had to really take these classes. This is what happened. So I'll show you what happened a year later. We made this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, hit 8. 1 hit 2, 3 hit 4, 5, 6, 7.
I'm Po-Shen Loh. I'm a math professor, and I travel the world finding math in unexpected places.
I'm Robert Sienna. I've transitioned from an athlete to a coach about 4 years ago.
Hey, good to see you again. Great.
Oh my gosh, I want you to meet my friend Chelsea.
Hi, I'm Po. Nice to meet you.
I'm super excited to bring him in because his background is math, and we use a lot of math in cheerleading, but we don't really think about it.
We have never had a math professor come here and work out with the teams.
I think you get the idea. Actually, that was so much fun. So if you're curious, just search YouTube for math cheerleading. It's not very hard to find once you do that search, okay? And we talk about fractions, we talk about even and odd numbers. It was awesome. Actually, it was 10 minutes long. If you had gone, and the way we filmed it, by the way, is we just filmed it reality style. They just brought in a camera crew and just filmed the whole darn thing and turned it into something. And if you had gone to me in high school and told that guy, in 20 years, you're gonna pop in and meet some cheerleaders that you've never met before, hang out and film everything, I'd have been like, what are you talking about? I'm the math team captain. Okay? But it worked. It worked. So I said, I can do this for all these high school students. So actually then I said, okay, let's do this for all the math people. Right. And suppose that you are a person who's trying to learn this communication skill. Can you do it just by watching these actors and actresses? No, you also need to try, okay? So now here's the deal. If you find people who are really good at math, what do you think they're happy to talk about? Math. So the way they practice is by live streaming the most engaging live video math classes ever to these middle school students. I'm connecting the dots. This is a win-win-win situation. We got middle school students who wanted to learn from some people who are really good at math, passionate, all of these things. but we couldn't find enough of those people. Over here, we have high school students who want to learn how to be engaging as they talk and need someone to say something to about math, right? And at the same time, the way we power everything is they also need to get coaching. Well, it turns out that there are all of these actors and actresses who also want to get involved because they also win as the whole thing goes. This is win, win, win. Everything works. I'm going to show you what this looks like, and I want to talk through a little bit more because so far, this is what I described as theoretical. The beautiful thing is I actually got made all the way through. I'm actually not only a researcher, I also make things. I think I learned that from my roommate who grew up in Tullahoma. It's like, let's not be just a books person, let's also make things, right? So in order to make this, we had to overcome a major challenge. It's because what we do is we don't only do education locally. Actually, our whole point was to spread education everywhere. That means we had to do it online. Some of the groups, some of the places that we teach in are farther flung, harder to reach in. So I wanted to solve the hardest problem, which is how to teach math online. You see, that's one of the hardest problems because, well, I think that a lot of our experience during online education during the pandemic was a little bit challenging. As a teacher, as a professor, I didn't even know if anyone was paying attention. I just saw all these black rectangles and white names, you know what I mean? And it seems like a lot of students during online learning figured out that you can press Alt-Tab to switch between windows whenever your parents walk out and come back in. So I had to, we had to figure out what to do. Online education is hard to be engaging in. Well, then I started thinking to myself, is my whole idea dead? Because, maybe it's just that kids don't like screens, right? Could that be the problem? No, kids love screens. And that's when, see, I'm a mathematician. That's when I look at this stuff and I say, aha, so there's not a fundamental problem. In fact, actually, kids seem more interested in their screens than real life. So what if we changed the way that all of this teaching format was? You see, the teaching format was using something called Zoom. And to be honest, I've actually never met a single person in my life who actually watches every Zoom meeting with perfect concentration for the entire meeting. Do you know anyone who does that? No, Zoom was not designed for that. Zoom was designed for boring corporate meetings. Okay, so that's how I said, aha. But what do kids watch? Well, they watch YouTube, they watch TikTok, they watch Instagram Live, they watch something called Twitch. So I said, let's take the performing arts side and figure out how to use that to go and make something that kids might actually engage in. So let me show you what we did. You'll see a 1-minute video clip of what we turned math class online into. You'll see two people on camera. They're both high school students teaching, a boy and a girl. They're both teaching. There are also middle school students in the class, but for privacy reasons, I've cut the video before they jump on screen. So you'll only see two high school students, but we turned online math teaching into this. Not that, that's a calculator.
Minutes later. So, as we were saying, they still meet at the midpoint. That's a great point made by Ayush. And then, now seeing this, since they go at the same speed, the green one goes here at the same time the red one goes there. And then 20 times 2 gives you 40. Because if it takes 20 minutes for green to go here from the first one to the right one, at 60 miles per hour, 20 minutes is 20 miles. And then this is also 20 miles, so we get 40. Awesome. So, I mean, Audrey, do you have anything else to add? I think that was a really good solution by Ayush.
Yeah, it's really good. And one of the better things about that solution is that you actually don't really need to know how fast the trains are traveling. You can just use the symmetry to sort of...
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I actually like that you point out symmetry, because symmetry is always cool to see. And I think being able to see it in problems like this makes it more fun and also like makes it more elegant, I guess. But without further ado, Professor Loh, is there another way to do this problem?
But I promised you that there would be another way to do this question as well. We turned online math class into something that looks like a Twitch gaming stream. If that doesn't make sense to you, we turned it into something that looks like a podcast or a talk show. That's where the improv comedy idea came in. We put two people talking to each other. Because I thought about how many movies have you ever watched where there's only one person talking in the entire movie? You haven't, right? So this whole idea of dialogue, we basically are trying to say, let's fuse together performing arts and mathematics and see what happens. So what if we turn it into like a talk show? Then it blows up. Actually, when I first got this idea, some people thought I was crazy. They said, why would you ever do that? No one ever does that. I was like, good. If you think it's crazy, then it's a good idea. This is actually how I operate. Usually I want to know that people think, no one ever does this thing. Okay. That's why we got a chance now, because everyone thinks it won't work. It works. There's also more stuff here that I'll share. Actually, you can't see this in here, but there's a very powerful piece of incentive alignment, that's the game theory that's inside this system. You see, because the idea of high school students coaching middle school students, that's not new. I did that when I was a high school student. I coached the middle school math counts team because I liked it. I didn't even know what community service meant. I was growing up in Madison, Wisconsin, we just did our thing. And I just did it because I wanted to do it. Nobody paid me. We didn't know what that was either. So I was just like, yeah, let's just do it. But unfortunately, there aren't enough people who just do that. So you can't power coaching just through volunteerism. Well, what we did is we're the first people in the history of education to set it up so that during every class, the format is 2 people teaching, a bunch of people learning, and every single class has a professionally trained actor or actress watching that class, giving real-time feedback to the high school student. That's the novel incentive alignment. The high school student is not just doing it for pure volunteerism. While the high school student talks, there's someone giving feedback on their smile, on their tone of voice. Actually, those of you who are, maybe any of you are CEOs or leadership or whatever, you might have taken these communications classes before. They're not cheap. They're actually when somebody just watches what you do and gives you all kinds of feedback to improve your leadership capacity through the communication. We just bundled that all in. So then suddenly for the high schooler, if they do 1 hour of coaching, they get 1 hour of access to a professionally trained actor or actress to help them improve their chance of every college interview, every job interview, and promotion afterwards. Oh, we also pay the high schoolers. At this point, for the high schoolers, it's like the incentive alignment has gone completely nuts, if you know what I mean. I'm currently drowning in high school students trying to join this program. That's my current situation. It's like I flipped the situation. I got too many. So this entire thing now works. If you're wondering how the money works, it's actually that the classes that we give to middle school students are not free. But that's because there were plenty of people getting middle school students math coaching after school anyway, which wasn't free anyway. So we said, here's a new model. Let's just take that money and put it in and pay the actors and the high school students, if that makes sense. So it's a different model. But this is all about incentive alignment. This is how you build something which can sustain to an arbitrarily large scale. Actually, this is the fastest thing I've ever built, fastest growing thing I've ever built. We already have over 100 high school students who are in this program, and it's growing. We actually expect that this will grow all the way to 100,000 high school students. That's because if you look at how many high school students participate in math competitions every year, as well as how many are interested in applying to all these competitive selective universities, it's in the hundreds of thousands. So there are actually plenty of people who are looking to combine both of those skill sets, like math ability and communication ability. At that point, we'd have enough people to be teaching like 1 million middle school kids. So this is actually what I'm working on. I'm going to close by sharing one more piece of how we're running this. And the reason is because I want to share, this is my attitude towards what we should do if we someday happen on something that can scale. See, I have all these high school students trying to join. So that gives us the power to go and say, what are the criteria? What criteria to use? Of course, the high school students need to be good at math. Of course, they have an inkling towards communication. But we enforce one more thing. We have an interview process. And we're looking for people who actually like helping other people. By the way, colleges do the same thing when they do their admissions. All right? But we put this piece in. And there's a reason I put this in. It's related to something that happened early on when I had this idea. I was explaining this at an event where my mayor of Pittsburgh, was there. And somebody else heard this and told me afterwards, you're making a whole group of really dangerous people. Because they are very good at math, they can come up with all the strategies, and they can convince anyone to fund them, they can hire anyone they want, and they can make their thing happen. I said, yes, that's why our first criterion is we actually are trying to find where are there people who have this like humanistic side as well. It's not enough to find someone who just wants to win the game, and that's why they want to join us. No. We actually want to know. We don't have a 100% chance of knowing, but we're slanting the whole thing towards people who seem to actually like other people. And seem to actually, no, I'm serious. It's like, I personally think this is really, really important. I mean, when I became the national coach of the US team, I used that to try to go around to tell people, okay, you got all these great skills, good. Now we should do something with them. right? So what we're doing with this is we're trying to build up this whole community of people who are slanted towards wanting to do something good with their math skills and their communication. Why? Because actually the grand goal of this is that someday all of these people will become leaders. Our people that are coming through this actually have the capacity to get into colleges, very competitive colleges. They will get promoted like super fast. They will get hired. What I'm actually trying to do is I'm trying to make it so that the ranks of leadership in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in the future have this flood of people who care about other people. I think that's all the more important today with AI because a few people are getting extreme power. We hope that they are not the SBFs. We hope that they are the people who actually care about other people. So I'm going in at the high school level, trying to put this pressure on, if you're good at math, let's see if we also can enjoy, the people who care about people, we're going to elevate that. And maybe this will convince more people to do the same. And maybe someday, in the world that we all get to enjoy in the next few decades, hopefully the people who are running it will be more slanted towards caring about other people. We have no political things. There's no thing about Republican or Democrat. We don't care. It's just, do you think other people are awesome? Okay. Well, anyway, that's my particular story. It's just showing how you can use these ideas from this AI. These are all thoughts of what do we need to do when there's this AI. Well, actually, why did I tell my story? It's because that's a human story. And I think that in the future, there will be plenty of opportunities. The key is to go and figure out how to do the human things. Good luck. So we have a few more minutes that we have this room for, like about 15 minutes. Of course, if people need to go, I respect that. But if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to use this time to just go off onto questions that people might have about anything. You can see by now I like lots of things. And if you were one of the students here today, you see that I also like just math. Or maybe you could tell from me geeking out on ChatGPT. But anyway, maybe not more math questions. Not more math questions, because I want this thing to be as broadly interesting as possible. Any questions about anything? Yes?
So, how exactly does you figure out who is more willing to help people?
How do we figure out who's more willing to help people? We are not perfect on that. We do actually ask for teacher recommendations. Actually, I will tell you this tip. Someday when you apply to college, your teacher recommendations are some of the most important part of your application. You might not know that. Your teacher is not only a dispenser of scores. Your teacher observes what you do. And we actually see the kind of generous things that you choose to do when there's no points attached to it. We see you every day. And so we can tell. I actually just wrote a whole bunch of letters of recommendation for various people. And inside them, it's like when I see that this is a person who's actually just a generous person who just cares about helping other people, it gets in there. Right? And actually, I'll say I've read thousands of letters of recommendation over the course of my career from other people. I actually used to help read for some parts of undergraduate admissions, and I still read for graduate admissions. And you can just tell, like sometimes people write, and it's like, this person actually has a big heart. I'm not talking about the letter writer, I'm talking about the subject of the letter writer. So the point I'm trying to make is, life is not purely about scores. Of course, scores are good, do as well as you can there. But remember, there are other people out there. And we see. But there's more. In our system, we also interview people. I'll tell you a story. So about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was interviewing a young lady. And, after she was amazing at math. I asked all these math questions. In my interviews, I ask people math questions that they don't know on purpose. And I'm curious how they think about it if they don't know how to do the problem. If they do know, I'm like, let's change the problem. Until you get one that you don't know. Then let's see how you think. That's what I always want to know. How do you think about something you never saw before? And I was like, man, this girl's good. And then I said, okay, here's a hypothetical question, nothing to do with math. Suppose someday you become fairly wealthy and you got some power and you don't really need to work anymore, but you're only 40. What will you do? And then she thought for a while. You can tell the person's actually thinking for a while because she never had this thought in her life that at some point she might have that situation. And she said, okay, maybe I would start some kind of an organization to help with education for other kids. And I just immediately jumped in. I was like, okay, great, but why? You live in Florida. You could just chill out at the beach. You worked hard enough for your life. Why in the world would you suddenly go and do that extra work? And then she just blurted out, Well, because if I didn't do anything, I'll just be bored. If I didn't do anything meaningful, I'd just be bored. I was like, that's it. Does this sort of make sense? It's not like that's only one way to do it. There are many different ways to get a signal. But I'm just trying to say that somehow when you talk to someone, you can get a sense of why do they do what they do? What makes them do what they do? Some people, you get the sense that they just like helping people. And I can't promise you that we are 100% accurate at this. So I only say we slant it. We're not 100% accurate. But I'll say that the SAT score is not trying to check this at all, if that makes sense. So what we do is we do the thing that the SAT score does not do, which is let's try to see if there's something else here. We can't promise to be 100% accurate. We're trying to slant it. The other thing we're trying to do is by making more people want to do this, hopefully we're going to influence the whole high school math community to be like, well, if you're good at math, you also should care about other people. Not only good at math, you should just care about other people. Okay, there was a hand over here. Yeah?
Yeah, you mentioned GPT-16 and I run 4. Do you have any predictions for how powerful it'll get in the next 5 or so years?
Okay, so the GPT is actually getting really, really powerful. I see the difference between the GPT 3.5 and the GPT 4. We have tried asking GPT, the old version, 3.5, the free version, to be our chat moderator. It wasn't very good. GPT 4 can actually do it. Like, that's the scary thing. It's like, it has reached the point where it can do it. And you see, here's the way to think about AI. There's no reason why its development should stop at the human capability. It just got here already, and it's going to continue to go through. It's like somehow we think that it's gotten close, but actually it is capable to go faster and faster too. Like I'll tell you, just last night I was trying to figure out how to build my own implementations of these large language models, these AI things. Because for our online chat thing, it would be more efficient if some of our things we did were not asking ChatGPT, but we had our own thing. So I was looking into that, and I found out that in order to do that, you need a really expensive computer right now, because they have a lot of graphics processing, unit parallel computation stuff. Not that it's doing graphics, but it's using the graphics chip, NVIDIA chips to do stuff. But I looked at that and I said, okay, that's today's hardware costs. Imagine that we go and add 12 years. The costs of these hardware will no longer be that I cannot afford it, right? Like today I cannot afford it. I might need to spend $3,000 buying a computer. How much would that computer cost in 12 years? You know what I mean? Like, think about the computer that cost $3,000 12 years ago. How much does that cost today? 12 years is a long time, right? So what we're seeing is that there's a cost trade-off, and that cost is going to come down. So that's why when I look at this, I just say, well, there will be this powerful AI. So then what should we do? Let's teach everyone how to figure out what problems to solve. Those are human problems. Work on the human problems that actually are important, meaning they might help people. Learn how to think so that they can use these AI tools to help them, and they can read the AI's output and decide if they agree. And then we'll live with the AI, just like how we currently live with our smartphones. Yeah, in the back.
You've given me a sense of hope about this because it's worrying.
I want to let you have a microphone because yours thing sounds interesting. And I want, don't worry, I'll give you the microphone. Here you go.
I was saying that he's given me a lot of hope because as I viewed all of the artificial intelligence craze that's going on, it reminded me of the schools that my youngest son is applying to that don't really, in my mind, want to get people to think. And I thought that artificial intelligence was just another way that's going to feed this many universities that don't really care about helping students to think and reason. And my question for you is, how can we make this grow, the thinking part of GPT, and especially at the higher education level where we have schools that no longer teach a genuine liberal arts education where kids learn how to think and reason?
Thanks. That's a good question. So I think one of the reasons I'm going around giving this talk is I'm showing that if you do, I'm trying to make the point that if you do learn how to think, you will actually have more opportunities. And I think that's just true. So the good news is that well, not necessarily that it's that good news, but if people don't learn how to think, they actually won't have that many opportunities. So then that won't go anywhere. But the people who do learn how to think and also learn the humanistic side so that they actually are doing the right problems, they will go far. So I guess what I mean is, if you use the wrong method and you don't succeed, then at some point you will not, people will stop doing that. Why I said this thing about solving the right problems, I'll give another example. So I gave this talk outside of Boston last month, I think, maybe 2 months ago. And there was a person in the audience who worked for a consulting firm. There's something called BCG, stands for Boston Consulting Group, one of the biggest consulting firms in the country. And he said that in his team, what they had observed is that actually, whenever they approach a task, 70% of the task is human. 30% of the task is technical. The human part is, what problem are we actually trying to solve for humans who have asked us to do such and such thing? And then once they figure out what problem to solve, then you do the technical part, right? But I think what you're talking about here about how to think, I've made it more general. I've been like, not just think about the logic, but also think about the human side. If you want to be in the 70%, then you need both of those. The good news is if you also learn the technical, then you can also do the 30%. Life is great, actually, for people who know how to think and also pick up that human side, which is the main thing I'm trying to advocate for. Okay, right here.
So in a recent interview, Elon Musk just said AI will eventually create a situation where no job is needed. So what's your opinion?
Oh boy, he said Elon Musk apparently said that AI will eventually create a situation where no job is needed. I have a hard time believing that. I'll say why. I don't only travel in the United States, I travel all over the world. There are some parts of the world that you're like, I don't think that AI is their biggest problem. Like there are lots of things that we need in this world. And I guess unless you have robots that can do everything, you'll be in some shape. But I'm like, the world is physical too. There's a lot of physical stuff. And when I think about this also, I guess I'll share another one of my philosophies, which is actually the AI is pretty effective at these white-collar jobs, where it's only based on information processing. I think that the AI will have a lot harder time with the blue-collar jobs, which are very physical. Because, you see, information processing is just like sending a bunch of words here and there. Physical stuff, I don't think we have even yet created a machine that's as good as the human hand. There's this general human hand that can feel things, can get response from like it's squished too hard, can move in all of these different joints, and is actually not costing $1 million. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you wanted to build a lot of tiny little motors that could do what a human hand would do, that would just be really expensive. So my attitude is, I don't actually see a world coming that soon where there's no job needed for anyone. And I also think that if people are empathetic, which is what I'm trying to push, if people are empathetic, you'll always find that there's a need for something somewhere. You just need to understand what the needs are. Okay, how are we doing on time? We got like 4 minutes. Any other questions? I didn't go to this side yet. Any questions? No? Okay, right here, yes.
AI help with big problems we face, like environmental change, war.
Oh, can AI help with the big problems like environmental change and war? So to me, those big problems are in the realm of very, very creative thinking. So actually, that's why I talked about this thing called game theory. So to me, I mean, the problems I work on are not the same scale as environmental issues and war, but they're like education. Or if you came to my talks like 2 years ago, they were about pandemics, which are actually large-scale human things. My basic observation is, if you want to do something that works on large-scale human problems, sort of the only solution is to cook up some kind of a scheme by which everybody actually wins by doing what you want them to do. That's like capitalism. I'm just giving an example. Again, I'm not an economics professor, but I'm just like, from my basic knowledge, there was capitalism and there was centrally planned economy. It seems like centrally planned economy didn't work as well. Not that capitalism is perfect, but in capitalism, everyone just kind of does what they want to do, and we have enough microphones in the world. And we have enough shoes. Because somehow everyone did what they wanted to do, and the system worked. The problems with some of those issues that you're talking about are, we haven't yet figured out a way to make everyone win, to resolve them. But why I gave the story of what I'm doing with education is that we've come up with a way that actually makes everyone win and resolves a problem that people thought would never be resolved, which is enough human coaches for middle school students. So it's like these things can exist, we just have to think about them. So to me, I don't know how to do those two yet. I don't think AI will be the solution to them, but I think that humans thinking about these who are very clever and understand people are probably the only hope we've got. Other questions? So let me dash. Awesome, over there, yeah.
So Elon Musk has pointed out some of the political bias that's been programmed into GPT-4 or 3 or pick the version. And we also have Grok coming out to essentially compete with ChatGPT. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, what you just said is that there's political bias embedded inside ChatGPT, and there's now Elon Musk has Grok. And so all of the things actually will all have their own biases inside. That's one reason I was curious if I can set up my own. Not for the whole world to use, but for our own purposes, so it would be doing what I need to do without any whatever bias. So this is actually back to what I said about we're getting into a world where a few people have very powerful keys. So all I can say is hopefully we can have more and more people who end up having those keys, who have these thoughts of what should I do for other people? Right? Because it's true, there will be tools that have bias. Everything has bias. And actually some of the bias is actually even built in. So I'll tell you that ChatGPT, if you go and ask it how to build a nuclear weapon, it will tell you, I'm not going to tell you. If you ask it how to build a bioweapon, it will say, I'm not going to tell you. I also tried asking it, can you tell me how to delete my hard drive? It said, I'm not going to tell you. Now that's kind of a funny one. Like in the sense that, look, what if I want to delete my hard drive? Somebody programmed it to like have these biases. Some of them, of course, we don't want them to tell people how to build nuclear bombs. But my answer is, I don't actually know a way to regulate. The only way I know is, let's have more people know how to do things, and have more people who are doing them with a heart. And a heart doesn't mean that I have my own agenda I want to put out. My concept of a heart is listen to people. Right? Like if you want to do something for people, you don't do what you think they should have. You talk to them and figure out why they want what they want, and understand what it's like to be them. That's all I can say. That's why I'm trying to teach all these scientists how to talk to people, to the point where you can be really comfortable talking to anyone, no matter what walk of life, no matter what part of the political spectrum. If you can talk to them, understand what they care about, then maybe there's more chance that what you make might be useful for a wider slice of people. That's all I can say on that one. With that, I think unfortunately we actually got to the 7:30. So here's what I'll say. We'll have to wrap for tonight. If people have more questions, I'll be in the front. I'm happy to talk to you. But it's been a real pleasure to come and visit all of you here in Tennessee. Take care.